Under the sea, under the sea, down when it's wet. Oh, it's so about to take it from me. So we're here again, Disney, with the race swaps again, and everybody's angry. Let's talk about. Everybody has an opinion, actually, so I'm gonna state mine. So what's up, guys? It's your boy Terrell here, and we're gonna talk about the recent, I would say recent, but let's be real here. The Little Mermaid controversy has technically been a thing for like the last, 4 or 5 years. We've technically known about, we've known about Little Mermaid, like live action remake one, and then we also knew who was going to be playing her or who was going to be casted to play her, and the rage had caused then before we had even seen any footage. And now an official teaser has come out through the, the D23 trailer, and it's literally just a teaser. There's not much to the teaser at all. I think you can see some silhouettes and some darkness, and then Ariel. And I'm just kind of like, yep, that's what we got. That's Ariel, all right. Yep. And of course, the conversation and outrage has been based mainly on the race of Ariel. Now, because I am a black man who doesn't necessarily think like the traditional stereotypical black man, I already lose in the beginning of this conversation by not immediately going, "What the fuck do you guys have issues with?" It's just, it has nothing to do with the character, what her race is. So I don't see what the problem is. If I don't immediately go into that line or say people who have an issue with this are immediately racist, I've already lost. So I'm going to try to take this in more of an analytical approach while also still addressing those things. Because it's funny to me, with all this shit going on, the irony of the whole situation is that if we ignore the race thing, which has been the biggest controversy, even if everyone was cool with this being like a black Ariel, the movie's not gonna do well or be that good in comparison. Now, granted, that's a personal opinion, but I'm also going off of Disney's live action track record. Pinocchio currently is not that liked, which is a shame in some aspects, because I think visually Pinocchio looks fucking great, but like as a film, no. Mulan was a fucking train wreck. Lion King was mediocre at best. The biggest problem with Lion King is, ironically enough, is the opposite problem Pinocchio has. Pinocchio has amazing animation. Lion King has shitty animation. They were going for some realistic shit, which is just makes the film seem uninteresting and boring in comparison. Aladdin was probably one of the better received of these live action remakes. Beauty and the Beast was a fucking like a leaf in the wind. Like it was like acknowledged in the beginning of it, and then it was never acknowledged again. Like it's crazy to me. Beauty and the Beast, I almost forgot even we had a live action iteration. Dumbo kind of falls in the same area where it kind of just came out and just blew away with the wind. And so even if no one had a problem with Black Ariel, regardless of people's opinion on Black Ariel, the movie, following its live action track record, at the best will be mediocre, and at worst will be a piece of shit that no one ever watches. So it's funny that the excitement over the Black Ariel won't really mean anything, because the movie she's attached to will never be as good as the original. Now, granted, this could easily be wrong, and I could be proven wrong, but considering Disney's consistent track record with these films, none of them being amazingly well done or great or wanted in any capacity, that's the other thing. These are all remakes no one gives a fuck about. And the funny thing is that you know how if you talk to people like in their 20s and shit, they'll talk about how they were misled as children. You know, like out in the history books, they taught a version of like history, but they didn't tell you the actual history. And then when they got older, they went ahead and went online, and then they could research things and realize that their teachers were full of shit, and that there were so many things that are being left out, or things that should have been explained to them that never were. I feel like that's what this Mermaid. I feel like that's what a lot of these Disney remakes are going to be, and same thing goes for Little Mermaid. It's going to be one of those films that little girls will be like, "Oh, this is great," and then you'll get older and you'll watch it again, and then you'll watch the original and go, "Fuck, this is ass. And that's not even addressing the race conversation, because I've seen both sides of the arguments. I've seen the fact that it wasn't even just like a traditional white girl. You took off a ginger, which isn't a fully represented race. I mean, fully represented people in films anyway, because they don't make up a huge percentage of people in general. So it's a shame to lose a ginger for a black person. You traded essentially one minority for another. So that's the first part of it. The other part is that obviously that she wasn't originally black. You're just making her black because of wokeness, which gets into a conversation I'm going to probably make as a separate video about how wokeness has essentially made people wanting to see people of color in films less wanted. Like, I'll explain it in the other video, but it literally is, it feels like the over pushing of African Americans and minorities and women and trans and gender fluid people in media has made people less accepting of it, whereas if it was just naturally thrown in instead of being forced into situations. But like I said, I'll go into another, that'll be its own separate video in itself. And then you got the other side where you got all these black, I think they're on TikTok or on YouTube, there's a compilation of people crying at The Little Mermaid. Now granted, I recognize The Little Mermaid is one of the more impactful Disney films. Now, I never personally gave a fuck about it, but I really don't think that film was for me anyway. But like, I have seen people on the verge of tears over this remake for no goddamn, for me personally, I can't understand why. Especially when the teaser doesn't show anything. Like, the teaser literally shows a bunch of dark shadows and then part of your world. Like, that's it. That's literally it. You see the actress in the darkest of the fucking of the scenes. Which the irony is, this has kind of been the problem with a lot of the Disney remakes, is that you forgot that Disney's biggest ally when it came to animating shit was fucking color. I think that's one of the weakest things about the Lion King remake, where not only is the CGI not great because you made it incredibly limiting because you still wanted them to look realistic, but talk. But if you go back and like compare scenes from those films, like I just can't wait to be king. Watch that scene, watch that musical scene, and then watch the live action version. You hands down will look at the fucking animated version and go, that shit hits. That shit is visually appealing and sounds great. Whereas the live action one just sounds great. Okay? Like, what the fuck? So you got that side, and you got the side saying, "Nah, I see myself as a Disney." You remember when Princess and the Frog came out, and people were like, "I can finally see myself as a Disney princess." And then now the Ariel's come out. Now that we have a black Ariel. Now it's like, now I can. Oh, me and Ariel can relate. I'm like, the funny thing is, you could have related to Ariel regardless of her skin color. I think that was kind of the whole point, which gets into kind of like the historical accuracy of like the original story and how grim they are. We all know that like Disney's version of all these famous folk tales are like highly bastardized versions of their original stories. Although, considering the original stories are so fucking grim and dark and depressing with a little bit of niceness in there. Yeah. And then the question goes, well, if you're cool with the bastardization that Disney did, what's the big deal of getting just a black Ariel? And in the grand scheme of things, you're not inherently wrong in making that claim. In the grand scheme of things, what's the big deal of having a black Ariel? And then you have the conversation of tokenization, where people are just tired of fucking seeing black people being black and other minorities and other like genders or whatever, ethnicities, I don't even know, sexualities, whatever, being thrown in the roles. Let's say you and your mother go shopping on a weekly basis, and your mother every week says you can get something and then consistently lies to you about what she's going to get you. And it's always something she knows you don't like, or she thinks you like but doesn't, but as you tell her you don't like it, and you're constantly getting shit that you don't like. And then the one time she finally tells the truth, you're just like, fuck, man, you've lied to me so many times, I don't trust you. Like, she could be telling you the truth with the proper intentions and reality, and you don't believe her because you've been lied to so many times. That's how it feels like with Disney and representation. It feels like Disney's like, oh, this is for the better. Oh, this is because she was a good fit for the role. This is because she really sold us on her voice. It's always that, but then you always got to see that fucking representation, 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 representation. Where the term in itself isn't poison, but when you hear it 13,000 fucking times, it definitely starts to feel like fucking poison. So even though Ariel in the Little Mermaid, which is probably one of the least offensive versions of bastardization, because we're already talking about a bastardization of the original story, it's still that representation, 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 where I'm just, and it makes people feel numb to even seeing black people or other minorities or sexes on the screen, because it feels like you're trying to fit a quota. Disney doesn't give a fuck about integrity or morals or even quality storytelling. At least if you're gonna be a piece of shit who's taking my money, at least give me a proper good time. And you're not even gonna do that because you're so focused on getting the black dollar or the Asian dollar or the non-binary dollar or the female dollar. And I'm just like, does this shit even make you more money? That's really where I'm at with it. Does this shit even make you more money? Is it even justified to do this? Because there's no way in hell people are gonna look at Disney and go, Disney, you're the good guys. Especially because the same analogy I used earlier with the kid getting online and learning the truth about things that were never told in school. Disney, you have a terrible fucking past, like most individuals back in that era. So we know you're not being the good guy in this situation. Anyone with common sense knows you're not being the good guy. So what's the reason why you would go out of your way to do all this shit? It's not because of inclusivity, because I don't fucking believe you. Inclusivity doesn't make you money, but it gets you something. You better be getting something out of this shit, because the amount of unnecessary controversy is crazy to me. And unfortunately, some people don't understand that in the grand scheme of things, Black Ariel does not mean much at all. Really at all. Because, spoiler alert, if it's like any of these other Disney remakes, it's going to be it's going to be a worse version of the original film. And then people will watch it when it comes out, and then it'll never get spoken about again. Like, dead ass, that's the sad thing of it. We have representation for a film that will die within the first few years. You know, the one thing I didn't even mention that I noticed about Pinocchio that never can get brought up because it wasn't a main character. They turned the fairy godmother into a black woman. For the fuck of it. It's the same thing. You didn't have to turn her black, you just chose to turn her black. Okay. Whatever. And I think it would be better, and I think it also comes from a dark reality as black people. Because you see so many black people getting in tears and excited, and I'm like, this is some goofy shit. What are you excited about? I'm excited to see a black version of Ariel? When the fuck has that ever made me excited? I think people take those fucking fan arts they do, where they do the hood version of... That's the other fucking thing, dog. It feels like we're going back to the hood version of things. You know, fucking RCDC World does it. There's a bunch of content creators that do that shit. The hood version of something, which is just considered the black version of something, which is just reinforcing the same ghetto ass stereotypes that we were trying to get away from. That's why motherfuckers can't. That's why, if you notice, there's been this weird backlash on like old school social media like Vine and shit, where like people went back and looked at some of the videos and shit that some of the black creators were doing and realized how harmful it was to the black community, because all you did was reinforce stereotypes, and then white kids did the exact same thing, which is why you have a bunch of old school white YouTubers or social media influencers who now have these dubious pasts because they played the same game as these black creators. It's just, it's one of those situations where I can understand why people are like, bro, why do you care this fucking much? But at the same time, I'm also like, this is fucking stupid, and you need to recognize how stupid some of this shit is. Like, it's very much in that middle of, this is dumb fucking shit, but also, why do you care so much? And I hate it because both sides are right in that situation. It is dumb shit. It's stupid. All you did was change the race of the character. Nothing else about the character as we know of is changing. But it's also stupid because if you're a black person who cares that much about like black progression and shit, you're sitting there going, but then why can't you just make new Disney stories with black people in them? Why does it have to be this weird this race swap a white character? So both sides are right, and you're just sitting, and then you get into my position. And I'm just like, well, the movie's probably not going to be that good or do well anyway, because none of these Disney remakes have done well. None of them. The best I think the best one we got was probably Jungle Book, and guess what that one was? Almost a 1-to-1 retelling of the original film, which then brings up the question behind all these Disney remakes: why in the fuck would I watch this live action shit when the original film is perfectly still serviceable? And in most cases, if talking about which film we're referring to, is still better than the live action iteration. Lion King is better. Aladdin is better. Beauty and the Beast is better. Fucking Jungle Book is still better. It's not by a huge margin, but like realistically, because you have Christopher Walken as King Louis, who the fuck? It's more of a what the fuck moment than anything, but whatever. That's besides the point. And guess what? I would bet money, because Mulan's also better than its live action remake. Pinocchio is better than its live action remake. I bet money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, The Little Mermaid is not going to be that one fucking exception, because they keep fucking up. And Pinocchio was close, because it visually is there, but then here comes some random added scene that doesn't really work. That's the problem when you have to follow a template. I would have rather them make new versions of those tales. Don't even retell those. There are other folk tales you could have ran with and made something new. And here's the thing. Here's the kicker. I'm not a huge fan of Encanto. I think Encanto was a great film, but like ended so soon it never really got its shit together. Like it almost baffles me. It feels like the movie stops at its climax and never finishes it out. It just kind of speeds through it. It's kind of like a movie would be this long. Well, Encanto goes all the way up to the halfway point, and then the ending just smacks it in the face, and you're like, the fuck? But I would rather you do an Encanto focusing on an ethnicity or gender or whatever the fuck, and build a story around that, than to do this weird shit where you're just remaking films that people are going to still think the original version is better than. I have yet to hear someone really go, the remake of The Lion King is so much better than the original. Not that it's a bad film in its own right, it's just not as good as the original. In which case, if I'm going to show my class anything, or show my friends and family something, or my young 2-year-old nephew, I'm not going to show him live action Lion King. You know why? Because it's dog shit, and it terribly represents why that film was so great to begin with. The original film has so much power and emotion in it that you lose a lot of that through the shitty fucking CGI. Mulan is just a completely different film, realistically. That just is somewhat based around the same concept. Mulan only kind of works literally because it's not the same film. And then you got films like Pinocchio where it's like, I'm going to just show them the original. Just show them the fucking original. So good job, everybody. We have a black Ariel in a film that will more than likely be less entertaining and less remembered than the original white ginger Ariel. So you got your representation. This is just going to... The good news is that you could either be Ghostbusters 2016 with the all-female one that people only talk about because of how bad and stupid it was, or you can be, I don't know, I guess Pinocchio, where it's kind of like a whatever thing. Because Pinocchio had happened, no one brought it up. That's because it wasn't the main character. It wasn't like they made Pinocchio black. There's a whole conversation about like blackness that I realize I can definitely do, and I probably will do. So look forward to that. But yeah, am I excited for the new fucking Little Mermaid film? Well, I didn't care about the original film. And if all the little black girls, I also just find it weird that a bunch of little black girls are like, yeah, I see me, that she looks like me. Who talks like that? That doesn't even sound like something a normal child would say. A child's around going, she looks like me. That sounds like some shit your parents taught you, and now you've internalized it, and it's become a part of your personality. You know how people have made being black their personality? God damn. God damn. Let me get off of here, dog. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the support. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And who in the fuck? Just hey, Little Mermaid. And I guess the last little tidbit I'll leave you is this. If you guys really don't think it needs to be supported, then just don't go see the film. I think that would be the best thing. All right, no, the best thing would be to ignore it and to let them have their fun for a film that will die in obscurity in a couple of years. Just saying. Just saying. With all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the support. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.